Welcome to our APS EdTech training on EduProtocols. I'm Tina Nunez with EdTech. I'm going to be sharing this slide at the very end of the presentation, but if you'd like to have the link to our sign-in form or feedback form now, go ahead and use these QR codes. What is an EduProtocol? It's a lesson frame that can be used over again and again. So for example, with the EduProtocol of a cyber sandwich, what happens is two students are going to read independently an article. Then they're going to come together with a digital tool and use that tool, such as a Venn diagram on Google Slides, to partner up and discuss commonalities. Then they go back and write their own independent pieces. Now, if you notice, this is a framework. So if you go back and use a different type of content, the framework still stands and can be used over and over again. It's the same task, changing content, and can be used for any content or any grade. It's based on instructional design principles. It's very student-centered for all the activities, and a lot of them are really engaging and fun. EduProtocols were developed by Marlena Hebron and John Carippo, who have a series of books called the EduProtocol Field Guides. Feel free to order some on Amazon to get all of the different student-centered lesson frames. Now, today's session is going to be in a little bit of a webinar format, but I want to let you know that the slides that are available from this presentation will be set up in a self-paced format using Pear Deck. What's going to happen is we're going to go through 9 very popular EduProtocols today, and each protocol is going to have one slide with an explanation of how to do it, as well as a how-to video, because I'm a visual learner. Now, each protocol will have a second slide with a link to all the digital tools, as well as any of the digital templates that you can use and copy for your own classroom. Some of the protocols will have a Pear Deck slide in there with an interactive exemplar so you can engage with the activity yourself. Within the slide deck, you will have a table of contents that can automatically link to your favorite EduProtocol that we're going to mention today, which will also be time-stamped in the webinar video. So let's talk about the number one EduProtocol we're going to cover, which is called 8 parts. The framework for 8 parts is a chart that is created with all of the different 8 parts of speech here in a framework. It's really nice to add the 8 parts of speech here, just in case you forget. This entire framework is built off of a single image. So in this case, there's an image with an elephant. Students are going to figure out words that match those parts of speech that go along with that image. So here they're just brainstorming them all, and then they pull them all together in this middle section where they can write a paragraph incorporating most, probably not all of those words. I have seen students do this independently. They can work in pairs to work on it, and I have seen them also complete this within small groups. Now, this brings us to the next part, which is what EdTech tools are going to be great to use for 8 parts. Now, a lot of these templates and tools are actually found on the EduProtocols website, which I will share at the end of this. So using either Google Slides or Google Drawing, you can have this framework and then change the image every single time that you use it. What's really great about this framework is there's also something called little parts. So if you're not wanting to build an entire paragraph with 8 parts of speech, you can use sight words and then just focus on nouns and verbs, working with creating full sentences. So here are some different templates and frameworks. If you click on it, you're going to open it. And down here, there are some funny picture sites where you can pull those images up. So I'm going to go up here and open up this Google Drawings version just to show you how you can use it yourself. You can go in here and change any of those parts of speech. And over here is where you can add that image. I have linked here an entire 8 parts images slide deck that you can pull any of these images off. So there's a lot of really fun ones you can use. But what you can also use within any Google tool is if you go to insert an image, you can search right from the web. So if you're doing something like an environmental project, you can search that right here automatically and then insert that image immediately into the EduProtocol. Now you are going to have to resize it, but once it's resized, you can stick it over here instead of that other image, and it's very, very quick to be able to use this framework. So our next EduProtocol is the Random Emoji Generator Power Paragraph. That's a big mouthful there for you. What it really incorporates is immediate writing and creative writing. So what you do is you show a random emoji up on the screen. Once you generate that first random emoji, pause and let students write that first sentence. And then you keep doing that for 5 total emojis. And then boom, students have a completed paragraph afterwards. Now, what's interesting about this in regards to EdTech, students can be typing in or generating those paragraphs within a digital piece. So some of the tools where students can be writing those consecutive sentences would be using Google Docs. So they're writing a sentence for each one. You can use Pear Deck, where students are going to be having the emoji generator coming up and they can write it in with the writing prompt. You can have Google Forms, where you have an emoji on the form and they write a sentence for each one, or Google Slides and even Seesaw for younger students. You can go ahead and have them either voice add in those answers or type them in. Now, this does seem like it would be for younger students. So now let's talk about adapting for some older students. For older students, you can have students use memes instead and write out 2 to 3 sentences per each picture versus just one sentence. Now, what I've also included on this slide is if you click on the image, it's going to take you to something called Birdseed. And this is going to be those emoji prompts that are going to be safe, and they've been created specifically for a classroom. So when those pop up, you can use tools like Google Docs right here, where students can be writing out that sentence independently. Same thing with Google Forms. What you could do to make this a little bit more collaborative would be to use Google Slides, where there's one slide per person, and then they can go through and read each other's paragraphs. Or we can use Pear Deck, where you add in a text slide, and then you can share as the teacher on the main board all of the different paragraphs that are coming up projected. I would like to mention that for older students, you can still use memes instead of maybe emojis. Have students write 2 to 3 sentences for each picture and adding in a lot more detail. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is, if you've never used Pear Deck before, here is a Pear Deck screen that is going to be projected up on the board. And then what the students are going to see is this. Now, you don't have to have it already done, but you can project on that random emoji generator and do it where there's pauses. But if you have the text version, students can type in their answers right here. I've gone ahead and filled this all out as a student. And what I'm going to do is go back to that teacher view right here. And once you feel that your students have all typed out those paragraphs, you go to show responses on the board. It's going to pull out all of those different paragraphs. So you can scroll through them. Students can read them on the board. While they're typing, you can actually go through and star your favorites and put them up at the top. So this is a great way that you can incorporate Pear Deck with that emoji power paragraph. So our first 2 EduProtocols were really literature-based. We're now going to look at number 3, math reps. This protocol offers templates where students will have to complete the same processes over and over again, sort of with a number of the day or an equation of the day. Now, what I really love about this EduProtocol is that there is a website that has been built around all of the math reps. So I've already added that to the slide deck. And on this website, there are so many references to math reps exemplars and templates built into it. Now, I've saved you a little bit of a step, and I've already added first grade all the way to 8th grade templates that have been built within Jamboard. So I'm going to go here and show you on a Jamboard. And when you click on that link, you'll automatically get a copy of your own Jamboard. And it's going to have the framework as well as any of the manipulatives here built into the framework already. You just have to change the equation. Now, what I really like about how these frameworks are built within Jamboard is if you go to the next following frame, it gives you an example of how that frame needs to be completed. Each of those different Jamboards actually have a lot of different examples for those templates and frameworks. So all you have to do is you can either go up here and make a copy for every student. You can go up here and share it with groups where students can work on it on a group. Or my favorite version of doing this would be to incorporate this into Google Classroom and make a copy for every student. Now, since we are trying to model how these templates can be used with Pear Deck, the next slide. So within Pear Deck, you can create that background of the Math Reps template, and then all you have to do is change the number each time. From a student point of view, this has been created on a drawing slide, so students can write in their answers right here on the Pear Deck slide. Now, as a teacher, if I go back here and I show responses, you can scroll through all of the different responses that students have filled out. The fourth EduProtocol is Fast and Curious. Now, Fast and Curious is one of my favorite EduProtocols, and this is a strategy for vocabulary words, and it sort of flips the general idea of how students learn vocabulary words in a completely different way. What you're going to do is on Monday, give the list to the students with the words and vocabularies, not to study, but to do an interactive digital assessment. The reason you want to do this digitally is so you can very quickly see how many of the words students understood right away. On the second and third days, you give the question sessions again, but you exclude any of the vocabulary words that have already been mastered. Hopefully by the fourth day, students are going to have a goal of getting 95% on all of the original questions. If students are still struggling on day 4, then day 5 can sort of be a freebie review day. Some tools that are really great to use with Fast and Curious are tools like Quizzes or Kahoot, Socrative, GoFormative. One of my favorite ones is Quizzes. You can create an account. Both of them have really great free accounts for Quizzes and Kahoot. What you do is you create those quizzes. So in this case, you can go down and add in the vocabulary word and then some different options that are multiple choice. So here would be the vocabulary word, and here would be the definition students would need to pick. Now, in these sessions, all you have to do is start a live session, which will very promptly create a session with a join code. Students will join that session, and then you just start the session right from the teacher device. The teacher will have a leaderboard that is displayed, but the students will be able to independently go through all of the questions on their own devices. Students are going to earn points and be able to compete against each other here on that leaderboard. Now, one other option for studying vocabulary, which is very similar to the Fast and the Curious, is if you do go to peardeck.com, go here to Pear Deck Vocabulary. You will have access to something called Flashcard Factory. And what you do is you add in a term and a definition, or you can leave the definition blank. And once you've added that list, you can go here to Play Flashcard Factory. Now, what's great about Flashcard Factory is students are going to work in pairs, where one student is going to create an image and the other student is going to create a sentence that goes with the vocabulary word, and that is going to create flashcards that are sent to GimKit where students can practice with their own created digital flashcards. Now, EduProtocols 5, 6, and 7 are very similar to each other, and they all have to do with slide decks and slide templates within Google Slides. So what I'm going to do is talk about them sort of all together and show really quick exemplars, just to give you an idea how it goes from a simplified idea of a framework to something that can become a bit more complex. Now, the best way I always find to learn these different structures is to see how they have been completed by students. So I'm going to be showing you some of those examples. The first one, number 5, is thin slides. With thin slides, students only have to fill out one word and one image per slide. Now, you can give students about 5 minutes to create a very small presentation or a very small slide deck. You can do this a couple of different ways. You can give students all one concept, and then they can fill that all out to do something similar, or you can give each student a different word or a different concept that all comes together with one main idea. We do have many different templates here for a slide deck, but One of the other tools I absolutely love to use for thin slides is Jamboard, because the idea of having one drawing, one image, you can pull those, either one of those, and text is all just very quickly built in. So here on Twitter is a thin slide presentation about government. So each of the students had a word that went along with government, and then they added in their one word and one image that went along in that slide presentation. And then in the end, all of the students have those words all built together in the one slide deck. Now, the next concept is very similar to thin slides, but is a bit longer, and this is based off of Iron Chef. Now, what the students do is they're going to work in a collaborative jigsaw on the same slide deck. You can have groups of 4. I've seen it in 5 or 6. But what students are going to do is each of the students in the group is going to get one basic slide to fill out with information to create a total slide deck at the end, which is their collaborative presentations. But on each slide, there is going to be something called a secret ingredient. It's going to either be a quote or an image or something that is all similar to tie that presentation together. Now, what's really fun about this is if you don't share the secret ingredient or have students come up with the secret ingredient in their teams, the other students have to try and guess what that secret ingredient is during the presentation. So here is an example of Iron Chef and how it's been used for a U.S. history report. So in this case, it starts with the colonial period and it keeps moving up throughout different time periods. So if you notice, the framework is very easy. They just have to add an image, some bulleted information, and then they have to add their secret ingredient. So in this case, and the next one was they would pour tar and feathers on anyone. So this one looks like interesting facts, like the most interesting fact about that time period. So this is where I say the secret ingredient just kind of makes it fun, like a mystery where other students need to guess what that secret ingredient would be. So on this slide deck, I've provided you templates for thin slides, as well as a template here for Iron Chef, and then exemplars for those 2 different EduProtocols, because I feel like looking at the exemplars is a little bit easier than looking at the blank slide deck. So the last slide deck I'm going to be showing, and if we've noticed, it's kind of gone from smaller slide decks into a group project, and now we're going to be talking about Bookakucha, which is a digital version of a book report. Now, what's great about this is you as a teacher can create a template with main themes that can be used for any book of story. So what I mean by that is something like a theme or conflict or setting or character, or looking at text features or nonfiction components. A lot of those Common Core standards work out really well for this format. So what students do is they're going to take this template here, and they have one idea on each different slide deck. The students are going to fill out those slides for their book and with information about their book, and then they're going to record a presentation, or they can say the presentation. But what's nice about this is they can use tools like Flipgrid or tools like Screencastify or even the device camera to record themselves giving this presentation that they can then share with other students. So here's an example, and I'm just going to show briefly one of those slides, which talks about conflict, and the student has recorded themselves using Screencastify for this particular book.
So the author in this book is the others. Now, I may have mentioned them in my flashback. If you still don't know, remember the old lady in the starting? She is one of the others.
So we're not going to have to go through the whole entire thing, but what you'll notice is that it's usually split into 2 sections. Here is the title. The students fill out the bullet points of what that is in their story, and then they can add either GIF animations or pictures or different little things here that go along with all of those different concepts. So I'm just going to fast forward here to show you slide 3 has to do with the reward. Slide 4 has to do with the plot. And so part of this is synthesizing that information and then be able to talk about it more without reading directly off of that slide, so they can be able to present those main ideas within their stories. Now, there is one other EduProtocol that does incorporate Google Slides templates, but this one is going to be used in a little bit of a different way. And this is the one I mentioned at the very beginning, which is a cyber sandwich protocol. This is done in pairs or in groups of 3. So students are going to be reading the same sections of some article or something independently. Both students enter their findings. They put the similarities together in a Venn diagram, use that discussion in the Venn diagram outline to create a better paragraphed summarization of the reading section. On our EdTech Tools page, it's pretty simple and clear cut. There is a slide deck for K through 2 and a slide deck for 3 through 12. What I really like about this template it has been designed for either 2 students or for groups of 3 students. And if you use the same template, students get very used to using it together. So in this case, you're going to want to either share this with students this way where they have 2 collaborators on the same slide deck, or I would probably create this assignment within Google Classroom and then assign it to pairs where both of the 2 students can edit the same slide deck. And what you're going to have is student 1, so students are going to have to know who student 1 is going to be typing out their notes at the same time that student 2 is typing out the notes on the article on the 2 different slides. Once the timer is set, or once you tell the students to switch over to the Venn diagram portion, student 1 summarizes their main points they think was really important. Student 2 goes back and does that, and then they figure out what they have in common, or they can be filling out this section while they are having a discussion. Once that happens, on the following slides, student 1 writes out their summary, student 2 writes out their summary. Cyber sandwich template, the cute little icons and everything. This is what is available for the cyber sandwich activity. Our very last EduProtocol for today is called Sketch and Tell. Now in Sketch and Tell, students are going to create a visual note-taking exemplar of a central concept or idea. Then what's fun about this activity is they're going to pair up with a partner to discuss what that image represents. And then once they have a full discussion about it, they can individually write out an explanatory paragraph. Now, what a good way that you can set this up with EdTech Tools is you can use tools like Google Drawings. Seesaw is another great tool for the littles to use for Sketch and Tell, and they can use voice explanations as well as writing. If students do have iPads, a good sketching tool is Tayasui Sketches School. So it's an app where students can draw and sketch on it, and you can just put that framework in the background for the Sketch and Tell activity. Or you can use the drawing tools within Nearpod or Pear Deck. So if you would like a Google Slide version of this template, you can click on here and that will open up the Sketch and Tell option. Or here I have created a Pear Deck background that has the Sketch and Tell option. So if you go here in student mode, students have all of the drawing tools available where they can draw out activities here on this side, and then they can use the text feature here to type out and explain their findings. So in this case, what was your favorite EduProtocol you've learned so far throughout our session, and how do you feel you're going to use that in your classroom? Now, in the classroom, you would pair up students to discuss and show their digital sketches before they do the tell part, but sadly, we are in a self-paced environment, so we're just going to run with practicing Sketch and Tell here on Pear Deck today. There were quite a few EduProtocols that were discussed today. I'm so glad that you decided to join us. Hopefully you've gotten a different mixture of EduProtocols, or you were able to go through the self-paced course or through this video and find the specific EduProtocol to meet your needs. If you would like to explore more EduProtocols, I've linked on the slide deck the amazing resource that is the complete EduProtocols webpage that is created by the author of the book. I have also taken all of the EduProtocols and incorporated them into a list format with a couple extra ones in case you're more of a list person than going through each of the individual slides. And I've incorporated a Ditch That Textbook, other ideas for how to use EduProtocols in the classroom. So a lot of them are the ones that John Crippo and Marlena Hebron have already added to their site and things. But if you want to look at some more ideas that people have shared on Twitter, then this is a great page to look. If you want to look at more EdTech tools and to explore more of what APS EdTech has to offer, you can fill out our request for training form, and you can also look at some more self-paced sessions that will offer some badges. Please fill out a feedback form for our self-paced session today, even though it was a self-paced. I'd like to get some feedback on it. And if you wouldn't mind, if you'd like to get some credit for this, go ahead and fill out their sign-in form knowing that you took this self-paced class. I've also included our EdTech website, YouTube channel, Q&A, and we have a new link to our EdTech quick tips videos. All of the slides that were incorporated today were from Slides Mania, and I want to give a shout out because they have amazing slides for all presentations. So thank you so much for learning some EduProtocols today, and don't forget to get on social media and share out what you've done. Have a great day.